it's Olive. Welcome back to my channel. I thought, you know, I've got a few videos out now. It's coming into spring, there's quite a bit to clean. I figured why not kill two birds with one stone and clean some of my leather products that, you know, I'm probably not going to be using too much at the moment, and, you know, just have a bit of a chat about myself and my history with horses, and yeah, clean my tack as we go. So we're gonna start with the worst of the worst. These are my brown paddock boots that I have had probably like 8 years. I had these at my first riding school, and I remember because I got my first set of half chaps that matched these. You know, they're the same brand, they're both Dublin. Shout out Dublin, these things have lasted really well. You know, they've been on the beach, they've been in salt water, I've not treated them the nicest. So my first riding school, I started riding in 2016 for my 11th birthday. I think I maybe did the first lesson just before. Anyway, the first place that I rode with basically taught me everything. You know, I'd probably done a couple trail rides here and there, but you know, that was the first sort of real horse experience that I got. You know, I did walk trot canter there. We sort of started jumping from pretty early on. Looking back on it, I don't think it was a good idea how early this instructor had us jumping, but at the same time, like, I was 11. I wasn't gonna sit there and be like, I don't think we should be doing this. It wasn't my pick of the riding school. My parents were the ones that picked it. All that fun stuff. But, you know, I made good friends from there. I'm still in contact with a girl that I knew, or that I met there, and, you know, we hang out sometimes. Anyway, so I spent 2 years at that riding school, and I didn't really have very good experiences towards the end with the instructor and the owner of the school. I'm not gonna get too into that. I'm not gonna name and shame. I don't feel like we need to do that. Left there, and then sort of was a little bit in limbo for a while. I rode at another place for maybe, what was it? So that was 2016, I was in grade 6. So I was there at the first place until, I think I had just started grade 8. I was maybe like, I don't know, a little bit into grade 8 when I left. And then I sort of had a little bit of a break from riding, focused on school, you know, still loved it, still really wanted to do it, but my parents were paying and they didn't want me to continue to ride there, so I stopped for a little while. Got back into it eventually and rode at this other place for a little while, which was good. You know, I learned so much at every riding school that I was at. The first one sort of established the basics, and then the second one sort of, I guess, pulled them a little bit further. You know, I had picked up a lot of bad habits from this first place, and the second place was like, why the hell do you ride like that? And I was like, I don't know. I'm 13, I have no idea what's going on. That was a good eye-opener. You know, I was taught a little bit more about horse biomechanics and taking into, you know, sort of delving a little bit further into the more technical riding position, and we sort of honed in on that while I was there. But this place was like an hour away, so it wasn't that convenient to get there, so I wasn't there for very long. And then I found the last riding school that I was at, and I was there, so I moved there at the same time that I changed high schools. So I changed schools, right before the last term of grade 9, so that I was like, wasn't starting completely fresh in a brand new year. It was, you know, anyway. That was just how we decided to do it. I'm going in with a leather conditioner now. I just did soap before. Yeah, so I started at this other riding school, and I learnt so much there. So much. You know, my confidence was still knocked. I still actually won't jump after the first place, which I was literally only at for 2 years, but that's how much of an impact was, you know, made on me. All of my falls actually were at this one place. I actually haven't fallen off since. Touch wood with that. I'm looking to buy a new horse, but we'll get into that. I don't really need to be falling off him, her, whoever. Anyway, yeah, this other place taught me so much. You know, I rode so many different horses, I met so many different people, I gained so much experience with horse care. All of the other riding schools that I had been at, you know, you would show up for the lesson and your horse would be ready and it would like literally come straight out of the lesson before and you would just get straight on it and start riding. Whereas this last riding school, well, second last I guess, but this riding school that I was at the longest for was, yeah, different in that respect. I had lots of horses. It was very uncommon for the horse that you were riding in your lesson to be in the lesson previous. It might have been in the one before, but you know, they only did 2 or 3 lessons a day. Yeah, so you would have to, you'd show up half an hour early before your lesson. These are done, by the way. We're gonna let them sit there and dry now. I need to find some more boot polish because the toes of those, they're wrecked. But they're also 9 years old, so I don't know that I care that much. Next up, this is my horse Chevy's bridle. It is from the brand Lumiere? I don't know. I've actually never really thought about how to say it. Lumiere maybe? Anyway, I love it. It's the black onyx brow band, but then the shiny nose band. It's, yeah, inciseful. So I will actually just take note of what number the holes are so that I can put it back together and it will still fit him. Not that it's the end of the world. I mean, my horse Chevy, I have actually decided to retire really recently. So he's no longer going to be in any sort of ridden work. He's not going to be in any sort of exercising at all, aside from, you know, maybe the occasional walk down the road. But this bridle is very stiff. It's not very old. I haven't had my horse for very long. I wouldn't use this as very much of a tutorial on how to clean. Tack, I'm not doing a very good job. It's like 6 o'clock at night right now. I just decided to do this because I've been putting it off for a little while and it sort of needs to be done. Normally I would oil it as well, but I think my oil is in my grooming kit for some reason out at my adjustment. So that's probably not gonna happen right now, but that's okay. So we've got all of our pieces. I might just leave the bit attached and just clean them because I'm lazy, but anyway. It's like, it's the nose band that's mainly the dirtiest. It's just got sweat on the inside and the inside of the crown piece. But so yeah, this riding school taught me a lot. You know, you wouldn't show up and have your horse was ready. So you'd have to figure out where it is first. Most of the time the horses that were going to be used in any lessons that day, they would have been brought up by one of the stable hands or, you know, someone. The horse would be up, you know, from the paddocks down the back and would be in a yard waiting for someone to come along and grab them. So, you know, every horse had their own grooming kit, every horse had their own bridle, they had their own saddle, they had all their own gear. So they actually had lockers that they had these bags of brushes in for each horse, which I thought was really cool. So, you know, you would go and get your horse and then you would find somewhere to tie them up and you know, to a bit of baling twine somewhere, and you would go and find all of their gear in a locker. So they were just like little like school lockers that were just brushes, and then if they had boots, then they would have boots, and you know, you would go and get that, and you would groom your horse, and then you would find its tack, and then you would tack up, and then, you know, everyone knew what time their lesson was supposed to start, so everyone was always there with enough time to tack up. You know, some kids took a little bit longer to tack up some horses, so they would make sure that they were there on time, and obviously if there was any issues, then the instructors would help. Everyone sort of knew what they were doing, especially in my lessons. So yeah, it was good to gain a lot of experience in tacking up different horses because, yeah, I know they were school horses, but I mean, I can confidently say that some of them were worse behaved than my own personal horse. Like, it's not like they were, oh, they're school horses, they're all gonna be good, you know, they're not hard to deal with, blah, 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 whatever some people say to try and make people that ride lesson horses feel bad. If you only take lessons, I I don't care. I grew up as a lesson kid. Like, that doesn't mean anything to me. You know, if you're into horses, you're into horses. For whatever reason, if you can't afford to have your own, that's okay. You know, that's not your fault. You might only be young. Even if you're not and you're older and into horses, that's also perfectly fine if you can't afford that, you know? I know that they're expensive. Obviously, I have my own. Like, if anyone's able to vouch for that, like, hello. But yeah, so I was at that riding school for quite a while, probably maybe 4 years. You know, I did quite a lot with them. There were a lot of different events that they would do over, like, just internally. Not really, I guess, competitions, but they were sort of competitions. They would be mostly holiday camps. So, for example, one of the ones that I used to always love doing was the dressage days. So throughout, like, the school term, every lesson that you would do each week, they would be sort of working towards teaching you how to ride a certain dressage test. I don't really remember which one it was. I knew it at the time off by heart, but obviously because I wrote it, it was the same one sort of every year, but that's okay. We got better and better at it as we went, but in lessons we would do different ones. And yeah, so each lesson, you know, we would focus on a certain movement, whether that be a lateral movement, whether that be something else, and you know, we would have to warm ourselves up in the arena with, I think my lesson was normally three or four of us, which was a little bit busy, but it was all right. You know, everyone was sort of old enough. I would have been about 15. I think I was there about 15 to 18. So I was there for a while. So yeah, I was definitely one of, like, the older half. There was obviously people that were older. There was ladies that were just there that were definitely older than me. But in terms of lessons and kids that I would see in school holiday camps, you know, definitely one of the oldest, but that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, that was obviously me at some stage, but I started, I guess, a little bit later than some of them, so, you know, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone's on their own journey. All right, I'm gonna put this back together now. I don't know where I was, but that's okay. I don't really know what I was saying. All right, where's my numbers? I had them here. What numbers? I had my holes. So I think we'll start with the bit. I always get confused. I pull it all the way apart and then I go, oh, hang on, what was I doing? This bridle is still so stiff. It's difficult to get some of the keepers through. That one actually wasn't that bad. I mean, this bridle's almost 2 years old now. So, one piece done. This one, I was confused. I can see a little bit more of everything on. What is this? What was? Sorry, sweet. What was it? Which one? I think I do actually. I don't know if it's for a while. It's just okay, but the guy offers so put it in a bench across the original, which was heavy. That's like heavy. Oh, I forgot to put the brow band on. That's alright, we'll move on. I'll deal with that later. The main reason that I wanted to do this video today was to clean these stirrup leathers. So in trying to sort my saddle, I pulled these off and I've moved house and we've been through a cyclone and I don't know how well you can see, but they are absolutely covered in mildew. So that is just amazing. These weren't the most expensive stirrups ever. They were reasonably cheap. So they have sort of scuffed my saddle a little bit. At the end of the day, that's not the end of the world because my leg covers them anyway. But I love these stirrups also. I like the wide footbed after years of riding in, you know, really cheap, narrow dressage irons. You guys all know the one. I spoiled myself and got some wide footbed ones. And they don't have any safety features. I really should probably get some safety ones. If anyone has any recommendations for, like, good safety dressage stirrups that aren't like $1 million, please let a girl know. Anyway, I wanted to clean these. But yeah, so I was at that riding school for a while and then they shut down at the same time. They shut down the same year that I was graduating school. So I was 17 and yeah, they were closing down. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't really know what I want to do with school. I don't know what I want to do with work. I don't know what I want to do about anything. So I sort of was like, all right, well, we'll see how we go. and I accepted the fact that I wasn't gonna ride anymore. And I was like, okay, well, we'll regroup, we'll see where I'm at. You know, my parents had said that they weren't gonna pay for my lessons anymore. Once a week, once a fortnight lessons that I was doing. So that sort of threw a bit of a spanner in the works. I couldn't just be like, okay, well, we'll just move to another place, you know. I had my own car now, so I did start to look around. Probably took about a year before I was like, okay, I've had enough, I wanna start riding again. So at the end of the next year, so what was that? I graduated in 2022, so this riding school closed down in 2022. And then end of 2023, I was like, all right, well, I really want to get back into horses. I really want to get back into riding. It had been killing me, but it had been so long since I had ridden. So I started to look around for another riding school. The one that I landed on was actually in a really similar place and a similar distance, similar time away to the second riding school that I was at. Funnily enough, it wasn't that same one. That one I think had also actually closed down or like had changed owners. Anyway, it was not in my budget, so I was like, okay, whatever, we'll have a look, we'll see what I can find that's maybe a little bit cheaper. And so I found this place and it was good. It was obviously really far away, so while I was working full time, I couldn't do lessons like in the afternoons or like during the week. I think I was doing a 9 o'clock lesson on a Saturday morning, and I would drive 40 minutes to an hour to get to my lesson. I enjoyed it. I had a bit of fun. I was only there for maybe 2 months? A month, 2 months? And that was when I started to look at buying a horse. I had gotten back in touch with one of my friends from the very first riding school. I think I maybe lost contact with her through the last couple of years of school. And yeah, so she had bought her own horse and I got back in contact with her. And so I was talking to her about how much she was paying and sort of just trying to decide whether or not I could fit horses into my budget. And obviously I figured out that I could. So I was still riding at that riding school for a little while, and then I think at the end of the year they closed down for, you know, Christmas and whatnot. So I took that opportunity to have a look around, and I started to sort of get an idea of how much everything was, and I was putting together spreadsheets, and I was sort of trying to budget and figure out what was available, you know, see what my adjustment options were, having a look at what horses were available. And yeah, I ended up putting an ad out on Facebook, a couple different groups to just see what was out there. I know Facebook's stodgy, but I didn't have a high enough budget for the horses that were on like horse deals or, you know, things like that. So I was only looking on Facebook. I knew what I was up for. I bought Chevy, you know, you guys have heard the story. If you haven't, go check it out. I will leave a link to my video, I think 2 weeks ago now, after this video goes up. I did a video talking about how I discovered that my horse had kissing spines. And so that sort of went into a little bit more of our journey together and everything up until that point. And yeah, unfortunately, very recently I decided to retire him. He's just had major behavior changes, and it's sort of, I don't know what his problem is. So I've decided I'm just gonna retire him for the moment. He is only 14, so I mean, unless anything drastic changes and I discover I have more time, I'd rather just him be happy. I just want him to be happy. You know, that horse doesn't owe me anything. With how kind he was to me before I found out he had kissing spines and I was still riding him, that horse could have ditched me so many times, but he didn't. So I feel like I sort of owe him that. He can just, you know, chill out for a little bit and we'll go from there. Yeah, so obviously I am starting to look for a new horse. So please keep an eye out for the upcoming videos as I sort of talk about that. I probably can't share too much about the horses that I try and what's happening with that, but I'm hoping by the end of this year, by the end of 2025, I will have another horse and I will be able to ride it, and it will be, you know, tick a majority of my boxes. I'm a little bit picky. Obviously, I'm not a small person. I'm quite tall too, so I'm looking at something above 16 hands. Chevy was just under. He's 15.2 and a half, 3. So, you know, it's not like he's tiny, but I want something bigger. So yeah, obviously sound. I don't have any other preferences, so we'll see how we go. Anyway, that's all of my tack cleaned for the moment. It's now gotta dry out, and I hope that none of that mildew on my stirrups come back. We'll see how we go. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you learnt a little bit more about me and a bit more about my journey in the horse world and, you know, the last sort of 9 years of my life that has gone towards those lovely animals. Leave a like in today's video if you did enjoy, and let me know down in the comments how long you've had horses in your life, whether that's just in riding school, whether that's owning. Yeah, please let me know. I'm interested. All right, see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, bye.